Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and in today's episode we are checking out the new Mosquito XE helicopter project. This is a work in progress helicopter that was just recently released, and today we're going to see what it's all about. If you are interested in acquiring any of my overkills tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future updates and future guides that will be coming down the road. Link to Patreon can be found in the description below. Okay, so jumping right after it on FlightSim.2, here's the information we have on it. Now, I do want to make a very point, I always point out when I see this, this is my first attempt at making an aircraft for the game. So everybody keep your expectations and your minds open and make sure that we give effective criticism and be kind with our words, because it's always nice to see a new developer hitting the simulator. Mosquito is a very tiny helicopter. This thing is itty bitty. They did put in all of the aircraft dimensions and specifications in the post here, which I actually think is pretty awesome. Let's see, typical aircraft empty weight. This one I found funny. 298 pounds, guys. That is so tiny. But we're going to see what it is all about. Let's see here, 45 liters of fuel, so 9.9 gallons, or 12 U.S. gallons, excuse me. I'm like, I'm trying to picture something so small. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Now, you do have to use Airland FS. For those of you who don't know, Airland FS is a third-party application that runs on top of Microsoft Flight Simulator that basically injects the flight models for these helicopters. It's a really awesome piece of software and really, I think, increases the functionality of helicopters in the sim. I think it can just do a bit more than what the native helicopters can do. So let's go ahead and get back into the simulator and check out this helicopter. Okay, now you guys have to see this. I have the camera up close, and I'm sure it already looks tiny, but it really does not do this justice. Watch this. Look how tiny. I mean, look at our person over here. I mean, look how tiny this helicopter is. It's like an RC helicopter. But as far as the exterior textures, they look pretty good. Definitely well on their way to becoming what we would expect to see. Obviously, again, a work in progress, but I think it's off to a great start. The textures and the paint seem to be very, very nicely done. You got rivets, we got bolts, we got silver details on the bolt heads. The engine exposure looks very nice. It needs obviously a bit more detail, some more depth. Definitely you can tell it's in the early stages of development, so hopefully that will be something that comes along the line here. I like that it's got the experimental here. I mean, that probably applies to more than just the real world aircraft, but this thing is so tiny. I can tell you right now that in real world there is no way in heck that I would be able to sit in this thing. I would be claustrophobic and screaming for my mommy before I could even get off the ground in this thing. So with that being said, let's see what that is all about and hop into the seat. Okay, so stepping into the cockpit. Again, remember, very much so a work in progress, a very new release, but you can see where the developer is going with it. I don't know if this view angle is accurate or not. I mean, it definitely feels very claustrophobic, which is exactly what my concern with it was. But something about the camera angle still, or the camera field of view still feels off. And I can't put my finger on what it is. Maybe it's just I'm not used to something quite this narrow, but something just feels like maybe the camera field of view needs to be adjusted a little bit. Like it seems, I know the aircraft is very, very narrow, but the camera view seems to accentuate that even more, and I'm wondering if that's more than what it should, or if this is, maybe a very accurate depiction. Like I said, you wouldn't catch me in an aircraft this tiny. Let's see here. What do we have here as far as functionality? You can take the doors on and off. Oh, that's what I'd want to do, is fly in a helicopter like this with no doors on it. Even less to keep me in the thing. What do we have here? Gauges. I'm just sort of looking around here. Got magnetos down there. Can't really see what that one is. Oh, that's just magnetos 1 and 2. All right. Governor, altitude, twist grip. All right, what do we got down here? Oh, twist grip works, so there's functionality. There's our fuel right there. Oh, look at this guy. That's very interesting. Well, let's go ahead and just do an auto start. See if that functionality is available. It is indeed. That's really not bad. The startup sounds were good. The prop looks like it's almost cutting into the canopy here, so that's probably something that needs to be adjusted at a later time. But the sound really isn't bad at all. I mean, that was a pretty good startup sound. It started with a nice whine and then generated into a rotor rotation. Let's go outside for a minute. The heat blur effect is clearly being used here. The rotor movement, I think, looks very, very nice. Again, especially for an initial release here. The sound seems to be dynamic. Yeah. That's really I can't get over how small it is. All right, let's get into the seat. Let's fly it. Let's see what this is all about now. All right, we have everything up and running here. Let me give you guys a bit more game audio here. All right, let's fly. Controls, anti-torque, adding some collective. That's a really good sound adjustment, pulling the collective back. Back in. Nice. Nicely done on the sound so far. Continuing in. Oh. Give me a second. I clicked out of screen. One of the things I've noticed with Airland FS, if you either pause the simulator or you click off the simulator itself, so simulator's still running but you click into another screen, Airland FS loses the profile. I don't know what that's about. It drives me crazy, I have to admit. So you have to go back into your aircraft directory and reload the profile anytime you click on a screen or pause the sim. Really drives me nuts. Now there are 3 config files for this. You have 1 and 2, and then the config 2 also has higher altitudes. But looking at the documentation that he posted, I didn't see anything as far as what the difference was in the profiles. So we're just going to use the profile 1 and see what we get. So adding that collective back in. There it goes. Now you can see the helicopter starting to move. Ooh, okay. Easy to fly so far. Oh, hope I didn't speak too soon. Let me move that camera in a little bit. There we go. All right. Let's pick up. So small. Yeah, I'm definitely feeling a little on the claustrophobic side in this thing. I think this thing would be brutal for me in VR, which is funny because I'm not really a claustrophobic person, but something this tiny and compact, ugh, I don't know, man. Which is actually kind of odd when you think about it, because something like, you know, a Savage Cub or something like that, you're not going to have much more room than this inside the seat, but said maybe some of that's just the camera angle and the field of view that's in the sim right now. Trying to watch our RPMs. Make sure I don't get running too hot here. Let's check that trim response. It definitely wants to roll. Wants to roll to the left a lot. Trying to add a right rudder or a right trim to compensate. See if that's... Can't tell yet if that's even functional. I'm not noticing any difference as I depress the trim. I don't think so. I think you just have to sort of correct it. So that might be something worth looking into as well. And let's see if she gets quieter when we put the doors back on. I think I took them off. Yeah. Nope. All right, so no change there. Yeah, it definitely wants to roll. I don't know if that just requires the anti-torque pedal to... No, that's just going to steer our yaw. So, my biggest issue so far, just coming into this, is definitely that roll to the left. It's pretty significant. So, hands off the controls here. It rolls pretty intensely, I should say. So that's something that I would like to see, you know, at least a way to compensate for, unless you just the old-fashioned hold the stick over. But other than that, it's flying very nicely. It's not hard to control, even with that left roll. You know, it's not game breaking by any means. That's max collective there. So I really enjoy I'm enjoying the sound, and then if you watch the rotor wash up top, or the rotor spin around, not rotor wash, as I reduce the collective, you can see it slowing down as well, or at least the visual effect of such. Fun little helicopter to go doing some sightseeing with, and almost reminds me of like a kit project, you know, something you throw together in your garage and wheel out. I mean, it's so tiny. I know, I'm going to be holding on to that. I feel like that guy from Indian Summer, for those of you old enough to remember that movie, where he's like, it's just tiny, tiny, tiny. Okay, I will admit the left roll effect is actually more obnoxious than I thought it was. But again, I'm not... That's just me being picky. I don't think that's fair to judge the developer on that. Not at all. But I just can't seem to get any kind of trim out of it that's going to correct that. I'm literally holding the right trim down right now to see if I can get that out, and it doesn't seem to be able to. So that's okay. That's okay. We'll address that. Let's go ahead and give you guys some outside shots here. Nice little lake here. Let's go tear through it, even with these wonderful graphical bugs. Ooh, you can definitely get moving. Ooh, baby. Like I said, it could just be because it is so tiny. I wonder if it's just the main rotor torque that's wanting to bring it to the left. Not like the aircraft has a lot of weight to fight that, so that could be legit. It could be legit. But it's definitely a nice little helicopter. I love these aircraft that are coming out with these great view angles. You know, you got tons of visual opportunity here. Look around just about anywhere you want to go. The one other thing I like is I found getting it into a hover, at least there on takeoff, was very easy. See if I can get to something that at least resembles a hover. Almost. So it's really not bad. I mean, you can get close, certainly. And I'm sure some of you pilots who are better at that than I am will have no problem getting it into a hover. Let's get moving forward again. This is another one of those helicopters that's very similar to the Huey for me in the aspect of, you know, one of my favorite things to do in the Huey is to get down low and scrape the tree tops. Whether I'm in Microsoft Flight Simulator's version, DCS World, I love getting low in helicopters. There's something about a helicopter specifically and getting down and dirty with it, you know, and kicking up some dirt. I don't know what the appeal is to it. I don't know if you just get that sense of motion more so than with an airplane, or if it's just, you know, maybe the fear factor is a bit more intense because you know you have greater chance to do something dumb, you know what I mean? But this is a neat little bird. It really is. It's flying very, very nicely. No issues with the flight model from my standpoint. Again, someone who's much, much more well-versed in the helicopter theater is going to obviously offer a better opinion than me. But from a simulation standpoint for Microsoft Flight Simulator and once again a freeware aircraft, I love it. I think it's a it's a nice little helicopter, and yes, very little helicopter, but it's definitely neat. I would be interested to see what this is like in VR. I really think that in VR, I think it's gonna feel like them walls are closing in, man. But you know, when you look at the comparison to what it looked like with the pilot from the external view, it's got to be legit. You know, the more I'm flying it, and now that I've gotten used to the view angle and how narrow the cockpit really is, I think the view angle is probably correct. I'd be willing to bet that the camera angle's dead on the money. It's just, whew, it's narrow, man. All right, well, let's go ahead and bring it back in, and we'll call it a day. Okay, that was kind of fun. So I'm going to say this too. If you are new to helicopters, this is definitely a really good one to start out with. It's very forgiving. I've tried to pull that crap that I just did, you know, spinning it around and just swinging back in the other direction to parking a couple of times with other helicopters, and I'd say 8 out of 10 times it doesn't end well. Oh, lost too much power. I'm trying to get right on the X here. I don't think I'm going to, but I'm trying. Come on. Okay, I give up. I give up. You know what, real quick before we call it, let's go ahead and try the second configuration, see if there isn't a difference there. So I'm going to go back into Microsoft Flight Simulator, add-ons, aircraft, and let me find the folder again. Let's load up the second profile and see if there's any major difference. There it is. Alright, so here's the second profile that we're going to try now. Remember I said there's 2 config files, so we'll see what the second one's all about, and if there's a major difference between the two. Let's do a quick spin. Whoa. The second one here feels a bit faster. Actually, it feels a lot faster. A lot faster. Holy moly. As far as I can tell, still no change in the desire to pull to the left. That's still very much a thing. But the aircraft does feel like it has more power with the second config. I don't feel like that's just placebo. I think that's legitimate. As far as flying it around goes, the handling doesn't seem like it's any different. I'd be interested to know what the difference specifically between the two of them are. I know, like I said, so you have config 1 for Airland FS, config 2 for Airland FS, which we're using, and then config 2 higher altitudes is what it's titled. So, I mean, the config 2 higher altitudes, that's pretty self-explanatory, but I would be interested to know what's the difference between configs 1 and 2. Because all in all, it really doesn't... I think it might just be a bit more powerful in the config 2, maybe a bit faster, more snappy, if you will, but I really can't tell. So that's something that I'd like to see what's going on there. But... Whoa. Let's go ahead and try my little show-off move there and see if we can get back into land again. Close enough, I'll take it. And once again, the shutdown process, that just killed the engine. It would have been nice to hear the engine wind down a little bit. But anyways, guys, that is the new Mosquito helicopter project. Make sure you guys check this out in the link below. Again, it's completely free. Airland FS is free. HCG, keep doing what you're doing. I'm liking what you're putting out so far. This is really awesome little helicopter. I'd be interested to know a little bit more detail about what to expect when you fly it. So, you know, if you go to do any kind of documentation, I would recommend doing something that sort of gives you a little heads up. You know, if that left pull is normal, if that's something that you have to compensate for, if there is a way to compensate for other than just, you know, kicking the cyclic over a little bit. But all in all, I think this is a wonderful start to a really cool little helicopter. I cannot get over how small this thing is. I didn't even know it existed. When I first saw it, I was wondering if there was a scaling issue when I loaded it in. Then I realized, nope, it's really that small. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. As always, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really does make a difference for us content creators. And as always, stay safe and healthy above everything else, please. And I'll see you in the next one.